I finally get to start building my little deck area here with my 3 little steps here. I hope I get this all done in one day, but we'll see how it goes. I'm running into a bit of an issue in that my slab here is not level and it's not flat. Dealing with the level is fairly easy, and that's why I've got my laser out. So what I can do is just make sure I've got a nice square end here, let this be all sorts of however tilted out that it wants to be, and then mark where the laser is showing level, and then flip that over like I've done with this one for this spot, and then that ends up being pretty plumb. We'll just chop these up and then I'll have a little bit extra left over. None of these were cut with any degree of care, so we're gonna hop back over to my finally too small miter saw and clean up one end of each of these. I've got my 4 posts about in the position that they need to be in. I've got my laser set so that the middle of the concrete is at the same height as the laser. So when I mark my laser on my posts, that will be the top, and then I have to cut off an extra 1 inch for the deck boards. I've got just a little bit of shade right now, which is very nice. Makes it much easier to see the laser. Now you might be wondering, why am I using a shim as a straight edge? That's because working with the laser in this light, when I've used my metal straight edge, I've gotten reflections that when it's not just suddenly overcast like this, which like I said is great, makes it impossible to see the laser. I've got my 4 support posts here. The next thing is 2x6 frame around these and then 1 in the middle. We'll go all the way to that end there. We get 61 and come out just a bit. So I want it to come out, match right up to the edge of the sidewalk. 38. 2 at 61. Now that 38 is going to be a little shorter. It'll be 3 inches shorter. It'll be 35. Can I get 35 out of this piece? Oh. I have laid out the top frame of my little step deck area, and it's a lot bigger than I expected, but the measurements don't lie most of the time. So I'm just gonna blast this all together. I'm gonna leave the middle one detached for now so that I can come along with my concrete drill and get this one actually attached into, I keep pointing that way because it's going to be here, get that attached into the concrete there. And then I can come along and connect this middle piece after. And then I can basically plunk the whole thing down in place as like a completed thing. Let's see how I did for getting it level. Moment of truth. Good job, Moose. Good enough for outdoor work too, that's for darn sure. Next step is to drill through this in 3 spots and put some washers in behind to create a little bit of a gap. So any water that will be on the top of the deck or on the top of the concrete has room to flow down and doesn't get stuck on top of this wood and doesn't get stuck between the wood and the concrete and start rotting things out. This is one of those, it costs very little, it takes very little time. Like this entire roll of 75 feet was only like 15 bucks, and it will help maintain the structural portions of the deck for a long time. So if someone wants to come along and say, all right, well, we want it to be matching the rest of the steps that I've put in other areas of the house or the yard, then they can come along and do that and not have to worry about, you know, is this still in good condition? So another one of my viewers has just been like, Moose, stop being dumb. I'm like, oh boy, that's a mean thing to say. But Dizzylurker is not a mean person, so I know they don't mean it that way. And they said that I should take care of this edge before it gets too close to the fence to deal with as well. So I'm going to take a moment and do that. Okay, we'll get all of these started enough that I can get the washers hanging off of them, and then try to get them lined up to the holes I already drilled. Now 19 to the middle, is that 16 on center? 16 on center is 1.5 inches over. I think it'll be okay. That'll do. If you have got uneven either top or uneven bottom, you have to make accommodation for that when you build your stringers. It is taller here than it is here. The way that I've had to deal with that in the past has been say, okay, we'll ignore whatever this side is doing. We're gonna measure the highest point here, and we're gonna build all our 3 stair stringers to be to that height. The reason we do that is we can come along later and say, okay, well, the one in the middle, that's too tall now. If we measure these all to be the same, then as we get higher up on the ground level here, we kind of creep up this way. And we can take care of that by cutting under the bottom tread on the bottom side and lowering that back down. So our stairs end up level, and we have a slight height difference from this side to this side to the first step, but then from the first step to the second step, first step is level, second step is level, third step is level. Everything is level except from here to the first step. We'll check over here. We got 16 3/4 exact. I do not want my clock, I want my calculator. So 16.75 divided by 3. Why 3? Because steps should be between 5 and 7.5 inches thereabouts. If I go 16.75 divided by 2, I get 8 3/8, which is too much. It's a nice even split, but it's too tall and you can't have a fraction of a step, and I had already worked it out ahead of time. So keep your steps between 5 inches and 7.5 inches, maybe a little bit more than 7.5, but 8 and a bit is too tall. Shorter steps feel better than too tall ones do. We go by 3 and we get 5.58. So I get 5.5 and a little bit more than a 16th. If I do 5.5 3 times, I get 16.5. So 16.5, that means I have to make up 1/4 inch over each step. So we'll go 5 and 19/32, which is 5 and 1/2 and 3/32. I'm so proud to own stair gauges. I feel like an actual carpenter. I want to make a template and test it because it's been a little while since I've built stairs. Okay, so the idea is I'm going to get another 2x6 across the front here, but if I go there and there, are my rises all the same? So that is now 5 and a bit, and that is 5 and a bit, and that is 5 and a bit. So that seems pretty good. So here's an important thing to note. You might think that it would be a great idea to like overlap these a little bit to save some material, but for the ease of being able to actually separate the pieces, you want to not overlap this edge with this edge, or at the very least leave yourself space that you can cut it up this way to separate them before cutting out the actual rises and runs. One stringer done. Because my concrete isn't level, this is probably the 8th time I've said this for this video, I am not going to keep count or put a counter anywhere. This is good height, this is higher, and this is higher still. I have to figure out how much of the bottom of these two to take off so that the treads of my stairs are nice and level. Okay, that is pretty darn good. We're right at that front edge there. Now, I should be able to mark this height, and then also mark this height. So we're gonna zip 1/4 inch off the bottom there. And we're gonna try to straighten that out too. One of these days I'll make a zero clearance fence. In combination of using the laser level and then just coming back and doing a couple of extra passes on the bottom of these two, I've gotten it to the point where if I just put a little pressure there, and depending on how far up along these I put it, it's pretty darn level. You gotta remember, this is framing and this is outdoors. If it's, you know, there instead of absolutely dead perfect center, maybe just like a 0.5 millimeter up on this end. Tolerances, you gotta keep that into account, but it was definitely worth fussing to get it to this point. Now I get to screw these in and start putting my deck boards on. I didn't make any good explanation for this on the day, so I get to voice over here. There's an extra board I'm putting at the bottom of the stairs that gets screwed into the concrete. The stringers get screwed into this board and it prevents them from moving. I don't know if it has a real proper technical decking, stairing, fussy name for it. All I can find is that it's either blocking or a cleat. I have all the structure done finally. So I'm just gonna tape everything down on the tops of everything, and then we're gonna bust out a whole bunch of deck boards, and this should be done in the next hour. And then all the black stuff was done, and I'm kind of liking it. I like that it'll definitely last a lot longer, and all that's left now is just to get the deck boards on. I'm gonna go double check that my measurements are 39 across all the way back and on all the steps, and then I can just buzz out, I think it's 18 of these that I need at that width, and then it's just go put them all back in. Up by 1/8, up by 1/8, and we still have a gap at the top. My deck screws came with these little plastic spacers that I'm using here, and to make sure all my screws came out in a nice straight line, I brought up my framing square and used that as a guide. For anyone who didn't know why I'm bothering with stairs over there when I've already got stairs here, it's because once this airlock goes away, and whether I build a mudroom on the back door or not, my back door actually is at the end of the airlock. So if you're taking out the garbage, if you're taking out the recycling, if you're taking out your compost, although no in-calorie compost, you come out the back door, which is there, you come along the sidewalk, which is new. I would say nice and new, but it's not And then you're coming along, I got my garbage. Easy steps up, turn here, ignore the porta potty because that'll be gone, and garbage goes here. It's actually my slab that I poured here is underneath the porta potty and comes all the way out to here. So if you wanted, you could just be like, okay, toss the garbage over the fence if you wanted to keep your garbage bins open. I don't know if anyone would, but now there is a very easy up and down the stairs, and it meets up perfectly, like in the, let's see, right about here. It's exactly level here, and it's darn close to exactly level there. I wanted to have it so that these stairs were in line with the side of the garage, so that as you're coming either to or from the house, you're coming straight up the stairs, and then you've got a lot of space here to deal with whatever you're carrying out here. Otherwise, if you did stairs down this way, let's say this is the top, and then you go step, step, I made those 20 inches. If we come 20 inches off here, then all you've got left is an extra, like basically this much. 20 inches from the side there gives you that much space at the bottom of your stairs, which is really cramped and uncomfortable to be trying to scoot through past if the stairs come down this way. And what you would end up doing would be instead like step down, and trying to navigate that way coming off the stairs sideways. So I thought this would be a lot more comfortable and make a lot more sense. It ended up costing a lot more, but I think it'll end up being worth it.